Genghis Khan, known as Temüjin at birth in 1162, was a killer before he became an emperor. At 9 years old, he faced the brutal reality of life when his father was poisoned by enemies from within their own clan. This loss did not just leave him an orphan, it ignited a relentless ambition, fueled by survival instincts. He murdered his half-brother Bektar over a trivial dispute concerning food rations, a brutal initiation that set the tone for his bloody future. The ancient text, The Secret History of the Mongols, describes how even in childhood, Temüjin demonstrated an alarming capacity for violence and manipulation. He turned against those closest to him without hesitation, understanding that in the harsh world he inhabited, mercy equated to weakness. The death of Bektar was not merely a fratricide, it was a calculated move, marking the beginning of a cycle of annihilation that would follow him throughout his life. Temüjin's rise to power was not built on alliances of trust, but on fear and betrayal. He systematically targeted tribal leaders who dared to oppose him, luring them into false partnerships only to eliminate them when they grew too powerful. Battles erupted across the steppes, leaving dead bodies scattered on frozen ground and villages burned to ashes. His upbringing had taught him that mercy was a liability. He would not make the same mistakes as his father. His family life was equally ruthless. After marrying Borte and having her captured by a rival tribe, he wasted no time in assembling an army from surrounding clans to rescue her. He led them into brutal combat with no regard for casualties. This was less a mission of love than a demonstration of dominance and authority over all tribes. Temüjin's transformation into Genghis Khan marked not just his ascension, but also the deaths of millions who would fall victim to his insatiable hunger for power. His journey from a vulnerable child to a merciless conqueror laid the groundwork for an empire forged in blood and terror. In 1206, Genghis Khan forged a brutal empire from the remnants of nomadic tribes. He did not simply unify the Mongol clans, he employed merciless tactics to solidify his power. The ancient legal code known as Yasa illustrates his ruthless enforcement of order through fear. This was not a set of guidelines, but a decree that demanded absolute obedience under the threat of severe punishment. In battle, he utilized psychological warfare with a cunning strategy of feigned retreats that drew enemies into traps. The Battle of the Kalka River in 1223 is chronicled in multiple historical accounts, detailing how his forces pretended to flee only to turn back and unleash chaos on the unsuspecting opposition. Declassified scrolls reveal that Genghis Khan also employed prisoners as human shields during confrontations, forcing adversaries to choose between attacking their own or facing annihilation themselves. This was not merely a tactic, it was an assault on humanity itself, a grim reminder that surrender meant death for one's comrades. After each engagement, he gathered weapons and spoils, but also harvested intelligence from survivors to maintain his despotic regime through a network of spies known as the Yam. By 1206, he unified the Mongol tribes under the title Genghis Khan and implemented brutal measures to govern his new empire. Historical documents show that any hint of dissent would be met with immediate execution. A slight act of betrayal could lead to mass slaughter. He eradicated potential rivals with cold efficiency and left no room for mercy or negotiation. Under Genghis Khan's rule, fear was the currency of control. Those who opposed him would face violent retribution without hesitation. In 1221, Genghis Khan initiated the Siege of Nishapur, a pivotal moment that epitomized his unyielding brutality. Following a rebellion within the city, he ordered the execution of the entire population, an estimated 1.7 million lives extinguished in an act of calculated vengeance. Historical records, such as Juvayni's Tarihi Jahangushe, recount the systematic slaughter that ensued, detailing how men, women, and children were rounded up without distinction and executed en masse. The city fell into chaos. Blood flowed through the streets as families were torn apart, and witnesses were left traumatized by the horrific scenes unfolding around them. Genghis Khan was not merely a military leader, but an insatiable harbinger of destruction. He commanded his troops to raze cities to the ground, setting fire to homes and indiscriminately slaughtering civilians, those who had not even borne arms against him. In a chilling directive validated by ancient documents, he instructed his generals to eradicate any sign of resistance with ruthless efficiency. The campaigns against the Khwarezmian Empire showcased this mercilessness. Cities like Bukhara and Samarkand were not merely conquered, but obliterated from existence. This savagery shocked not only his enemies, but also instilled fear among his ranks. Genghis Khan utilized gruesome methods of execution. He commanded that traitors be buried alive, and beheaded those who had once pledged loyalty but later turned against him. Accounts from contemporary historians reveal that the number of corpses piled in major cities reached into the hundreds of thousands. This was not simply warfare. It was a meticulously crafted strategy to instill terror in the hearts of millions. Genghis Khan sought not only to expand his territory, but also to convert survivors into subservient subjects under his oppressive rule. These campaigns laid the groundwork for a vast empire, while simultaneously leaving indelible scars on humanity. Genghis Khan did not merely conquer, he exterminated dissent with chilling efficiency. His blood brother turned rival, Jamukha, faced a brutal end that was both personal and political. Captured and presented to Genghis Khan, Jamukha was executed in a public display of betrayal. The act was not just about vengeance, it was a calculated warning to others who might consider defying him. Historical sources detail how Jamukha's head was severed and displayed to send a clear message: treachery leads to death without exception. To maintain absolute control over his vast territories, Genghis Khan established a network of spies known as the Yam. This intricate web of informants spanned the lands he conquered and was crucial in preemptively quashing any signs of rebellion. Evidence from 13th century manuscripts reveals that these spies did not just gather intelligence. They executed sabotage operations against potential conspirators, ensuring that any hint of dissent was snuffed out before it could ignite. In 1220, the campaign against the Khwarezmian Empire illustrated the extent of his ruthlessness. After receiving news of noblemen plotting against him, he ordered their immediate capture and public executions. Reports indicate that these traitors faced beheading or hanging in front of soldiers and civilians alike, instilling fear in all who witnessed the swift justice meted out by their lord. Genghis Khan's actions were not merely military maneuvers, they were deliberate acts designed to instill terror throughout his empire. His methods were brutal but effective, demonstrating that loyalty was demanded under threat of horrific consequences. Those who dared question his authority faced violent retribution without hesitation. This ruthless governance allowed Genghis Khan to consolidate power effectively, but painted a grim picture of his rule, one built on fear and bloodshed, where any form of dissent would be extinguished with merciless precision. Upon Genghis Khan's death in 1227, the empire he forged transformed into a disjointed entity, rife with conflict and bloodshed. His successors, sons and grandsons, struggled to maintain the iron grip he had once held over the vast territories they inherited. The internal strife erupted in a series of brutal power struggles that revealed the empire's fragility. The Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260 marked the first major Mongol defeat, a clear indicator that the once mighty forces were beginning to fracture under their own weight. Historical records from Rashid al-Din's Jami al-Tawarikh detail how this battle was not just a military engagement, but a desperate fight for survival against external enemies and internal dissenters. The death of Genghis Khan left a vacuum of leadership that his heirs were ill-prepared to fill. Infighting became commonplace as clans vied for supremacy within the territories formerly united under his reign. Documentation from the era shows that noble families exploited their positions to gain wealth and power, leading to rampant corruption and discontent among the populace. Instead of continuing the expansion that had characterized Genghis Khan's rule, these leaders were consumed by their ambitions and betrayals, losing sight of the unity that had been central to their forefathers' conquests. The ensuing conflicts spiraled into relentless purges and assassinations among the ruling factions. Those loyal to Genghis Khan found themselves in peril. Many were executed in political cleansings designed to eliminate any semblance of opposition or loyalty to the previous regime. The decline of Mongol power was not merely due to external pressures. It stemmed from a lack of strong leadership, capable of maintaining the order that Genghis Khan had enforced through sheer brutality. By the end of the 13th century, the savage reign had devolved into chaotic remnants of its former glory. The loss at Ain Jalut opened floodgates for adversaries eager to reclaim lost territories, signaling an era where Mongol dominance faded into memory, a shadow of terror that once commanded respect across continents.